48 hours after the board meeting, the first federal vehicles rolled into the underground parking structure of Helix Dynamics. The employees watched from office windows as dark SUVs arrived one after another. Nobody knew exactly what was happening. Rumors spread through every floor. Some said the company was being shut down. Others claimed executives had fled the country. A few whispered that billions were missing. The truth was somehow worse. I stood beside Malcolm Reed in the executive conference room as federal investigators unpacked boxes of evidence. Agent Rebecca Lawson, lead investigator of the Financial Crimes Division, placed a thick file on the table. "I'll be honest, Mr. Vale," she said. "When we first received the anonymous package, we thought it was a disgruntled employee." Malcolm smiled slightly. "And now," she opened the file, "now I think somebody saved us 2 years of work." Inside were documents, transaction trails, offshore transfers, and communications recovered from Nolan Pierce's personal accounts. Evidence I never had access to in my first life. Evidence that would destroy him completely. The investigation moved faster than anyone expected. By the end of the first week, agents had frozen dozens of accounts. By the second week, search warrants were executed across 3 states. By the third week, the media discovered everything. The headlines were everywhere. Corporate fraud scandal rocks Helix Dynamics. Millions stolen through executive scheme. Federal investigation expands. Nolan's face appeared on every business channel in the country. And then the arrests began. I watched the footage from my office. 6 in the morning. Rain pouring down. A beachfront mansion. Federal agents knocking on the door. Then Nolan appeared. Bathrobe. Barefoot. Confused. Terrified. Exactly as I remembered. Only this time I wasn't watching years later. I was watching it happen live. The reporters loved it. The public loved it. The shareholders loved it. The only person who didn't love it was Lena. Because every new revelation exposed how thoroughly she'd been manipulated. The investigators eventually uncovered the entire operation. Nolan hadn't stolen $38 million alone. He'd built an entire network. Fake vendors, complicit accountants, bribed consultants, offshore holding companies. And hidden among thousands of transactions was an even darker truth. The theft wasn't the end goal. It was preparation. Nolan had been planning to acquire a controlling stake in a rival company using stolen funds. If successful, he would have quietly walked away with enough money to disappear forever. The scale shocked everyone. Even me. Because in my first life, Nolan was arrested before investigators uncovered everything. The timeline had changed. And every change revealed new secrets. One evening, Agent Lawson arrived at my office carrying another file. "You should see this." She handed it over. I opened it. Inside were emails. Hundreds of them. Most were business-related. Some were personal. Then I found one that made me stop reading. A message from Nolan to an associate. 6 months before my firing. The message contained one sentence. Asterisk, once Adrian is gone, she won't question anything. Asterisk. I stared at the words. Not because they surprised me, because they confirmed what I'd always suspected. My removal had been planned long before it happened. Nolan knew I was the only person capable of exposing him. Getting rid of me had been step 1. Agent Lawson watched my expression. "You okay?" I closed the file. "Yeah." But I wasn't. Not entirely. The strange thing about getting a second life is that people assume it removes pain. It doesn't. It simply changes its shape. You still remember everything. Every betrayal. Every disappointment. Every moment you wished had happened differently. You just carry it better. A month later, the criminal trial began. The courthouse was packed. Reporters filled every hallway. Analysts predicted a lengthy defense. They were wrong. The evidence was overwhelming. Witnesses cooperated. Accountants testified. Digital records confirmed every transaction. The prosecution dismantled Nolan piece by piece. Then came the moment everyone remembered. Nolan took the stand. His lawyers begged him not to. His ego wouldn't allow it. For nearly 3 hours, he blamed everyone except himself. The board. the economy, the vendors, the auditors, even Lena, especially Lena. According to him, she approved everything. She knew everything. She encouraged everything. The jury hated him within minutes. So did the judge. The verdict took less than 4 hours. Guilty. On every major count. Wire fraud. Corporate fraud. Money laundering. Forgery. Conspiracy. The sentencing happened 6 weeks later. 15 years. No early release eligibility. Several additional civil penalties. Asset seizures. Financial restitution. Everything gone. The yacht. Gone. The condos. Gone. The luxury accounts. Gone. His empire had lasted less than 2 years. His prison sentence would last 15. As reporters rushed to cover the outcome, another story quietly unfolded. Lena Cross disappeared. Not literally, professionally, socially, publicly. Nobody wanted to work with her. Nobody wanted to hire her. Nobody wanted her name attached to their company. She wasn't charged with a crime. Investigators concluded she'd been manipulated rather than participating knowingly. But public opinion rarely cares about legal distinctions. To the world, she was still the CEO who missed the largest fraud in company history. Her reputation collapsed. Friends vanished. Business contacts stopped calling. Invitations disappeared. She became invisible. One afternoon, several months after the trial ended, I received divorce papers. No demands, no negotiations, no requests, just signatures. The process took less than 2 weeks. Years earlier, I would have fought for the marriage. Now I signed without hesitation. Some things cannot be repaired. Not because forgiveness is impossible, because trust is. Life moved forward. Helix recovered faster than anyone expected. Under new leadership, we restructured operations, reduced waste, and restored investor confidence. Stock prices recovered, then climbed higher. Employees who once feared layoffs received bonuses. Departments that had been shrinking began hiring again. The company survived, exactly as I'd hoped. One evening, Malcolm joined me on the rooftop terrace overlooking the city. He poured 2 glasses of sparkling water. You know, he said, most people would have burned the company down. I thought about it. That honest. Very. He laughed. I believe you. The city lights stretched across the horizon. Thousands of windows. Thousands of lives. In my first life, I never saw this view. By this point, I was already dying. The realization still felt surreal. Malcolm studied me for a moment. Can I ask you something? Sure. What really changed you? I almost smiled. If only he knew. If only anyone knew. How do you explain reincarnation to a billionaire businessman? How do you explain memories of another lifetime? You don't. So I gave the closest thing to the truth. I got a second chance. He nodded thoughtfully. As good an answer as any. Months passed. Then one afternoon I received unexpected news. Lena had checked herself into a rehabilitation center. Severe alcohol dependency, depression, health complications. The reports were private. Most people never learned about them. I almost ignored the information. Almost. But later that night, I remembered another version of myself. A bitter version. An angry version. A man who spent years